Om Shri Sai Ram, placing myself at thy lotus feet, respected guests, teachers, and student brothers, loving Sai Ram to one and all. I have the pleasant duty to introduce Mr. Krishnamurthy Shankar to you all. Mr. Krishnamurthy Shankar, also known as Krish Shankar, is Executive Vice President, Group Head Human Resource Development at Infosys Bangalore. He is also Honorable President of National Human Resource Development Network India. Before associating with Infosys, he worked with various companies across industries like Philips, Bharti Airtel, Universal to name a few. Mr. Krishnamurthy Shankar is an alumnus of XLRI Jamshedpur, where he did his postgraduate diploma in HR. He also holds Doctor of Business Administration, Work and Organization Psychology from Aston Business School. Today, he will be addressing all of us on the topic how to create a purposeful organization. Without taking much time, I now request Mr. Krish Shankar to kindly address us. Thank you.
Hello, friends. It's a pleasure. Good day to all of you. It's a pleasure to be here with you. And I thought I'd share some views on how do we really make what we call as purposeful organizations. Yeah, how do we create organizations where people are able to give their best? I think that's the challenge that all of us are working on. And I think in the days to come, it's even more important that all of us work together to really create organizations where every individual can give their best. So let's just step back. And what I'm going to do is take a few minutes, just talk about what are some of the things that we need to keep in mind as we create those kind of organizations, yeah? Organizations that are based on values, based on purpose, so that every individual that works in each of those organizations feels like giving their best. So if you step back, what are some things that are needed for people to be at their best in any organizations? I think the first base is what I would call as there has to be some good hygiene, nice physical place to work if they go to an office, but rewards, pay, that has to be hygiene. That's basic hygiene. It's got to be table stakes. You've got to ensure that there is something there for them to really feel that they are recognized. Yeah, so right working conditions, right pay, whatever, ensure that the right tools are there for people to work. I think the next, and that's very important, is really ensure that they have a great team to work with. Because I think most people really enjoy with whom they're working. The right bosses, right managers that they have, but also the colleagues. Who do they work? How do they work? How do they enjoy the interactions that each of them have with each other? Because those interactions really make them feel happy, make them give their best. So I think we've got to create that. Ensure that the team works, that kind of a collaborative culture, that bonding between the team, and the managers. So that's the second thing that we've got to do. I think the third, and here it becomes very important, everyone needs a little bit of challenge, a little bit of stimulus for them to go that extra bit. But that stimulus also helps them in learning, right? And therefore, we've got to, if there is learning in what they do, then they'll really enjoy what they're doing, And the learning is just not going to come. Learning will come by that extra stimulus, that extra challenge for getting people to do something more. So stimulus plus learning both go hand in hand. And I think as leaders, we've got to ensure that both of these work. Let's take an example. If any of you are working in any organization, we've got to say, okay, now we've got an interesting project for you. Now this is a tough one, create a new challenge. And this is what the customer or the client wants. And with that challenge, they say, okay, fine, how do we really crack this project? And there you start learning, you find out what it is. They learn some courses, they learn some new techniques, they learn how to really solve that problem. And then therefore they feel good about it. So they solve the problem, at the same time they do a bit of learning. So I think Challenge and learning is very important that we got to keep building in organizations. Then I think it becomes even more trickier. Yeah. I think people at the end want what I call as autonomy. You know? They also want a little bit of freedom. Yeah. I think all this is good, but give me a little bit of autonomy. Let me pace my work. Give me a little bit of flexibility. You know, all of those things. So I want to do it at a pace that really suits me. I know this is what the organization needs, but these are some things that I also want to match. So I think all the elements of flexibility, and I think with remote working now, many people have been working remotely, and they're now more experienced to flexible work. And we've also seen that that really is quite good. You know, it works. And therefore, that's the other thing. What the right amount of autonomy, and it may vary from individual to individual. It may vary from people, and that's where organizations need to understand and have that little bit of customization so that people feel that this is the right thing for me. Yeah? Then the last one is, in the end, what I would call as creating a purpose, a sense of purpose, because that in the end really motivates people. Yeah. So you set the hygiene, a base which is, you know, the right things to work, pay, whatever systems, working conditions, the right job. That's number one. Number two, great team to work with. Number three, that learning, that challenge in the job and learning. Number four, a little bit of autonomy and flexibility that you feel that's right. Then now fifth one is really purpose. And this is very, very important. And there are two ways we've got to look at it. One is people want to really work for teams or organizations which are really making something purposeful in the world. Yeah. And I think as organizations, we've got to define what is our purpose. What do we stand for? And this purpose is not just a small thing, it's about everything that the organization stands for. What are our basic values? What are those values that we will really be looking at? And every company articulates those. And these values really have to be the values that humanity likes. Yeah? So you can't have values which are against humanity, because then people won't come to you. But that's what it is. You got to really look at the right values. You got to build the right purpose about what is it that this organization is aiming to do. And you can see great things, you know. There will be organizations that say, listen, we want to make the job of every individual in this world better. You know, make it easier for them to do things. We want to ensure that, you know, so there are these things, and technology companies say, listen, we want to really ensure that every organization is transforming. We want to help them transform. So create a purpose, set a set of values. Yeah, that's at the organization level. But it's also very important at the individual level. At the individual level, it's very important to say, okay, what is it that I want to do for achieving my own purpose? If there are certain things that I want to really achieve in my own life, how does this organization enable me to achieve that? That becomes very important. And I think that's the other thing we've got to do. Each individual may have very different things, you know, for them to really work for. Somebody's purpose will be, listen, I want to learn. I want to be the best in what I'm doing. Some others will have something else, you know. They'll say, okay, I want to really be doing, for example, I want to do a lot more of social service, you know. So therefore, that's good. Somebody say, listen, my whole job is to teach others. I want to really mentor others. That gives me a lot of things. So let's identify what are those things that really make purposeful things in people, and ensure that we create that opportunity for people to achieve their purpose. So how do you do this? You got to talk to people. You know, you got to have people saying, okay, what is it that you want? What really motivates you? How do you really? And therefore, you find out what elements of those you can give within that work. For example, someone says, my motivation is all about, listen, I want to really be the best. I want to learn and I want to be the best in this thing. Provide that opportunity for that person so that they can learn, they can do that more. Suppose somebody says, what I really want to do is really innovate. Give me something and I want to really, you know, so therefore there's something you find out and see, okay, what are some things that we can get there. A third person is keen to do mentoring, training people. So give them those kind of opportunities so they can start training people. So I think we've got to identify each individual and what is it which is at their deeper, their purpose. What is it that they want to achieve in life, yeah? And that may vary, but okay, talk about it. What is it that you would like to do over the next 5 years? What are some things that you want to do for yourself, for your community, for your family? Put that in front and see how the organization can enable. Sometimes it may not be possible in the job that they do, but you got to give them other opportunities in the organization. That's where companies have a lot of opportunities for people to do various other things, some social service, CSR, volunteering projects. There are opportunities to go and learn something which is different, or participate in sports or running, or give them opportunities where they can really can start expressing themselves, achieving the purpose, achieving some of the things that gives them real joy. I think that's something we got to start doing. A lot of people will say, okay, and there is this overlap between what really drives them, gives them joy, and what is the job that they need to do. And I think more and more we try and get this kind of an overlap. That's the best. And there are other things that you can do. There's something called job crafting that one can look at. What is this job crafting? Job crafting is saying, okay, I know this is the job that is there, but I've got another 10 or 20% that I can do what is relevant for this person. I'll try and see if I can craft the job around. This person is a developer, but he's very keen on learning, so I'm going to give him 10% of his time or 20% of his time in kind of training others or doing something. So create a kind of craft jobs which are much more holistic. And that's the other thing that we can do. So I think if you want to really build purposeful organizations, I think these are very important. Define the core purpose of the organization and the values that you stand for. And those values should be seen every day that people say, and it should resonate with them. And the more the values resonate with people, the more they feel happy about it. But at the same time, we also look at the individual purpose. What is it that each one wants to do? How do they want to do it? See what opportunities you can create within the organization for that, within the job, within the organization. And that's where you got to really ensure that there is a little bit of things like you do job crafting, you give them opportunities to participate in voluntary groups, you let them be part of other teams that will help them achieve what they want. So that really ensures that they feel that this is a company and this is where they can be their best. Yeah. So just to summarize, just these 5 things that I think the organizations of tomorrow, we've got to have people who feel valued, and these organizations have to really look at these 5 things. Ensure the basic hygiene of making people work, a great team, learning and challenge in the job, and continuous learning is very critical, autonomy and flexibility that they want, and lastly, purpose. What makes them feel that they are contributing, what are the things that they want and how do you do it? And I think I've just talked to you about a few steps that we can take to make that happen. So all these is easier said than done. Yeah, it's not easy to do in very large organization. It's not easy to do when there is, because you got to create systems. But that's where I think the future is. That's where we got to start creating the right systems to ensure that we start going towards this organization as a goal. So thank you. I just thought I'd take these few minutes to talk about how we can build purposeful organizations. Wishing you all the very best. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your wonderful insights on how do we create a purposeful organization. To sum up, you said that in order to have a purposeful organization, we need to define core purpose and the values for which we stand for. We should see that these values are communicated properly at the same time. These are also given importance. Individuals are also given importance to explore and grow while having a good hygiene conditions to work, a great time in learning and challenging, having autonomy and flexibility at the workplace. And at the same time, one should be able to reflect, for that matter, organization should also be able to reflect the values for which it stands for in everything it does. In brief, I think unity of thought, word, and deed is very much essential in order to achieve or in order to have a purposeful organization. I thank you once again on behalf of all the students and teachers of Department of Management and Commerce for sharing your wonderful thoughts on how do we create a purposeful organization. We wish and pray that we get many more opportunities to hear you and get benefited out of your rich experience in the industry. Thank you. Sign out, sir.
Om Shri Sai Ram. Placing our collective pranams at Swami's divine lotus feet, I pray for his blessings and benediction on all of us who are situated in various parts in the country attending this ongoing e-conference on economic resurgence with values. Swami said on a number of occasions that quality is more important than quantity. When it comes to corporate experience, it is not merely the number of years that count, but more importantly, it is about how those years have transformed one individual into inspiration for others. Today, we are blessed to have one such personality, Sri C. N. Ram, with us. Sri C. N. Ram has completed his B.Tech from IIT Madras and PG Diploma in Management from IIM Ahmedabad. After completion, he joined Bank of America as its first IT employee in India. He spent the next 12 years leading their successful transition from manual operations to automated procedures, which later got integrated with their global operating platform seamlessly. Sri C. N. Ram joined HDFC Bank as its IT head, and in his tenure of 14 years, he directed some of the bank's leading IT initiatives, which placed it as a remarkable IT leader in the industry. Sri Ram later became the Group President and Chief Information Officer of the SR Group, where he was responsible for streamlining IT governance, aligning business with IT, mentoring budding CIOs, and establishing strategic alliances with Microsoft and SAP. Sri Ram was member of various committees set up by the Reserve Bank of India that had significant impact on the banking industry. Sri Ram co-founded Rural Shores, a socially oriented commercial company to help rural entrepreneurs to set up BPOs in villages. Sir is currently advisor at Warburg Pincus India Private Limited, providing his valuable insights about technology. In a 4-decade-long career in banks, manufacturing, and BPO industries, Sir gained considerable exposure to some of the pivotal activities like strategic planning, information security, and ERP implementation, etc. He has been honored 3 Lifetime Achievement Awards from leading publications for his stellar work as Chief Information Officer. Today, He will be addressing us on the topic how technology can influence the business model for organizations in future. I now request Sir to take over. Saira.
Sai Ram, and good day to all of you. Firstly, a huge thanks to Dr. Sai Manohar and the Registrar Dr. Sai Giridhar for thinking of me as a speaker during the conference. It's a wonderful opportunity for me to reconnect with the Institute where I've spent considerable amount of time in the past interacting with both the students and the staff, enriching my experience considerably. So thank you again. I invoke the blessings of Bhagwan on all of us gathered here today and fervently hope that the lessons that he intends for us to learn are all being learned both in India and abroad due to this disruptive pandemic. Om Sai Ram. The topic I've chosen for my speech is about technology, no prizes for guessing, and how it has an influence on the changing and evolving business models for tomorrow. There is no denying the fact that we have had a rude awakening. Traditional business models have proved ineffective or have been changed very abruptly because of the lockdown and consequent effects. They need to be replaced. Some of them permanently because people in business have seen an advantage in the new way of doing business, what we call the new normal. What has been surprising for all of us has been the prevalence and ubiquity and near full-time availability of telecommunications and computing. And these have set the thinking caps on, and people have been using the time to think about new business models. This is going to be a very exciting time for the future. Terms like cloud, Zoom, digitalization, work from home, work from anywhere, they've all become commonplace parlance. Global supply chains have been disrupted, many of them permanently, but it gives a lot of opportunity for countries like India, Vietnam, to become global leaders. E-commerce will trend upwards. Migration patterns have changed and will continue to evolve. And I think what we are going to see, at least in India, is a true integration between what we call India and Bharat, which is predominantly rural. Buying behavior, social interactions, travel, etc. will see huge change. In my own life, I can see a huge advantage in working remotely, cutting down on unnecessary travel, both outside my home city and within the city, and definitely becoming more productive. Urban commute for quite some time had become a nightmare in cities like Bangalore, Mumbai, Chennai, Delhi. And earlier, as we were waiting for government to make the changes, now people are getting impatient and they're making changes themselves. Personally, I'm fascinated by technology and its power to revolutionize business models, making customer interactions more meaningful and fulfilling, ensuring the safety and security while guarding privacy, These are all the new norms. Giving the provider of the service complete knowledge about customers' preferences, ability to delight the customer with every interaction, and continuing to learn about changing customer preferences as we move along have all become enabled due to artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, whatever you want to call it. For the rest of this presentation, I'm going to provide you with a lot of relief. You won't have to see me, you just have to listen. I hope to be able to interact with you face to face at some point in time in the future. But if you have any suggestions or observations or questions, please do direct them to me, and both Dr. Manohar and Dr. Giridhar have my contact details. It will be my pleasure to learn from your observations and comments. Thank you. Well, this is the context of the current world. The pandemic for the last 8-9 months has completely changed our perceptions of what are viable business models. Work from anywhere, work from home, whatever you want to call it, has become ubiquitous. This has also amplified security concerns, whereas earlier people used to feel comfortable about providing security, both physical and for information security, in the premises in which they operated. Suddenly, the concerns have been amplified because now people have started to work from homes or in shared work areas where they don't have control. The other thing that has happened is that while we made assumptions about productivity of the workforce when they were in the office, we are no longer able to have the same kind of comfort when they are working out of home. In fact, we don't even know if they are the same people working on the jobs, um, uh, and whether they have been substituted by other people at home. This is not surprising. Customers have shown a marked proclivity for contactless interactions, and it's one of the reasons why e-commerce transactions have grown up, where earlier people used to walk to the market to buy even vegetables. These days they're having it delivered at home. The good thing in all this is that technology and telecommunications have actually risen up to the challenge and have been surprisingly very resilient. So despite the number of video conference and audio conference calls that have happened from home, all on shared bandwidth, the ability for the service provider to scale up the operations has been truly staggering. Welcome to the new normal. This calls for changes to existing business models. And as we said, people have to be provided connectivity, broadband consumption has to increase, better Wi-Fi, laptops, conference call software, recording facilities, all of that has to be provided. Well, homes are makeshift offices, but they are very inadequate in many ways. For instance, privacy, home life gets disrupted. Wives don't have any rest because they see the mails in operation all the time. Uh, there are security compromises which are possible because Wi-Fi's are notoriously unsecure, especially if you don't take even commonplace safeguards. And this has been predominantly suitable, this work from home, for knowledge workers and senior level people, not for factory workers. So there are segments of the population which do not have the choice that many of us have. Um, we covered this earlier as well, especially people living in metros. um, they've had to put up with long commutes, very tiring. Uh, they spend, I mean, one of the persons that I know spends almost 5 hours commuting every day for an 8 hour work. And earlier, when we used to talk about discipline and how Mumbai was surviving only because of the work ethic and so on, uh, people have seen that it is possible to actually stay at home and do better work, be more productive, feel less tired, maybe even put in longer hours. But that flexibility in work hours is very key for the morale. And therefore, once you've tasted the possibility, then you don't want to ever go back to the old normal. One of the most significant outcomes of this is where you're hiring, especially because you always invariably uprooted the person from where he's living to where he has to work, and that calls for a lot of migration. Suddenly, geography has become history. So it is possible for you to locate talent almost anywhere in the world as long as they can adapt to your working hours. So geography is no longer relevant for talent acquisition. This might also actually people will take advantage of flexible workplaces. So many of us live in very small apartments, and it is not possible, especially when you're sharing it with people from competition. Let's say a TCS person sharing it with Cognizant or Wipro. Obviously, you can't have very private conversations. So there could be a mushrooming of flexible workplaces closer to where people live as an alternative to the long commute. So you might see a lot of those kind of flexible workplaces actually turning up. These are not without challenges. Like I was alluding to before, security is a huge challenge, and especially when the government is also waking up to security and privacy concerns, it becomes very material for the information security officer to ensure that there is no compromise, even when people are working from home. And because of regulatory oversight, there are huge penalties for violation. So businesses can be hauled up for not providing adequate security and privacy. We've always been wondering about productivity and how are we sure that people working from home who have fixed jobs, like in a call center or in a data processing center, how do we know that those people are as productive as they would be when they were in the office? Luckily now there are a huge amount of software which actually tracks what you're doing, um, and are able to actually give insights into people's working patterns and behavior. And with a bit of flexibility, it is possible to make people much more productive while they are even at home. This is always a concern, right? So we have homes and work locations. Are they adequately equipped with the right amount of bandwidth and broadband access so that even for calls, it is sufficient and people don't feel that they miss the face-to-face communications. Of course, this is not going to completely replace offices, except that offices now can actually ration the space that is available and regulate the number of people who will be in the office at any particular point in time. So there is going to be a lot of real estate which is going to be released from traditional workplaces. This is always a concern about people who are suddenly robbed of the interactions amongst themselves. um, because humans are highly social animals, and when you suddenly deprive them, are they going to remain motivated? So this is something which is still evolving. People are experimenting with various things, but I won't say that this is something where the final word has been spoken. So this will continue to evolve. There is going to be a lot of advent of psychology in how people are going to be managed when they're working from home or away from office. Um, This is again a HR area, and the CEOs and the HR managers have to worry a lot about culture, bonding. Is that going to be as effective as in a physical workplace where people used to congregate, have conversations around the water coolers or during coffee breaks, make plans for social outings and so on? How much of that is going to be replaced by activities which have to be done remotely? This is yet to be proven. Is technology the savior? Um Clearly, I think we've been able to see for ourselves that connectivity and availability are improving phenomenally. I've never been on a call where I have had to cancel because people were not able to log in. Um And technologies increasingly are being made available to enable work from anywhere and productively with the right amount of monitoring. Um, I used to be on the board of a company which used to do proctoring for examinations which were conducted. And one of the key questions was, are you sure that the person who was appearing for the exam is the right person? He's not masquerading as someone else, or getting his friend who is much more knowledgeable to answer the questions on his behalf. So there are software which actually enable you to monitor the pattern of answer giving and identifying the person through his photograph and video, which has got to be turned on to ensure that there is no cheating which goes on. This is, like I was alluding to earlier, geography is now history. So your ability to harness resources from almost anywhere in the globe to do particular tasks, I think is going to be an exciting opportunity. It will open up quite a lot of possibilities for even educated and trained housewives to become part of the gig economy. While there will continue to be security and privacy concerns, um, there is a lot of software and techniques and tools where by employing them, we can actually overcome, and these can be managed very satisfactorily and effectively. I don't think anyone is going to argue this point that cloud adoption and digitalization will be much faster, providing huge benefits to corporates in terms of resource allocation, utilization, and definitely productivity will go up. You will see the benefits in terms of an increased GDP and better welfare programs. Bharat has always been the rescuer in case of economic downturns because consumption patterns have always buttressed the ability for India to respond collectively to global disruptions. Um, this is not going to be any different this time, but armed with better tools, telecommunications and compute tools, even when you see children's education, their access to educational tools via the mobile telephone, I think there is a huge silent revolution in the offing. And when people have seen the benefits of something like this, it will be very difficult to take it away from them. So we will continue to see rural India much better connected to urban India and definitely for the betterment of the whole of India. We'll take this with a pinch of salt that the government is keen to promote well-being of citizens. They do. I think this pandemic has made them realize that the healthcare facilities, the entire infrastructure towards healthcare and well-being are not that evolved, and people have to take much better care of their citizens. And government is finally waking up to its responsibility. When we talk about technologies that hold a lot of promise, these have been evolving, but clearly there is a huge part that they'll have to play in terms of artificial intelligence and deep learning. Um, we can't have security and privacy as a bolt on. They have to be inbuilt into the variety of systems that we deploy. Artificial intelligence, virtual reality, combined with augmented reality. I think this is a heady combination, and I'll show you a couple of videos to buttress this point. Cloud computing gives a lot of flexibility even for the regular office software, and I think there is going to be increased adoption in the future. Collaboration tools, we have already started using quite a few of video conference tools, but it is going to become even more productive and collaborative with real lifelike experiences, which is what the new technologies will actually bring to various organizations and people. We have always had a great e-payments infrastructure. In fact, I would say that India's e-payments infrastructure is probably the envy of the rest of the world. What the pandemic has done is given it a fillip, and the increasing number of transactions and people getting familiar with e-methods of payment is really welcome. And this will actually reduce the cost of payments and greatly improve the economy. And along with government programs like GST, which will become increasingly electronic, um, leakages to revenues will also be addressed, and overall GDP, I think, will improve tremendously. We covered this. I think a lot of the future-looking companies had already embarked on huge digitalization efforts. But with a lot of help from the regulators and the government, I think this ecosystem has no other means but to keep on improving and expanding to cover all the citizens of the country. I'll just break off now to show you a couple of videos to explain the concept and power of artificial intelligence combined with augmented reality and virtual reality to bring home the point of disruptive technologies which we can continue to look forward to in the future. The two short videos that you're about to watch have different bearings on the use of technology. The first one is a hyper personalized ad brought out by Cadbury's, which uses a lot of the geocoding inputs. And it's a fascinating use of technology to serve very highly personalized advertisements. The one following that is the use of augmented and virtual reality for you to select a spectacle frame. Both are interesting. Those are now commonplace tools that are available to everybody in business these days. And what is significant in their usage is that it is possible now to build use cases with very basic technology like these.
Hey India is home to more than 6 crore small businesses, and they've been fighting for survival after the coronavirus outbreak and the lockdowns.
Presenting not just a Cadbury ad. We advertised not just for ourselves, but for thousands of small businesses across India.
Mom, I love it.
The idea was innovative, but the technology and execution was challenging. Most of the stores in India don't have a digital presence. So we had to manually feed our system to create a database of local retailers, mapping them to their location, which we identified through PIN codes. As the ad was served to an individual, an algorithm located the PIN code and then mapped the various local stores in that PIN code and served the one closest to the individual in real time. The AI-enabled system created thousands of permutations for the localized version of the same ad. So many that it is even impossible to track. This resulted in the first ever hyper-personalized ad ever. One that ensured every single person that saw the ad supported a local store. Because when all of us support our local stores, all of us can have a happy Diwali. Not just a Cadbury ad.
Okay, here we are trying to look at the site of Lenskart, which gives you multiple frame options to suit your face. You have a choice. You can continue to watch Katrina Kaif or settle for a less attractive face which is going to come up just now. So I'm going to record a video with my face for choosing the appropriate frame for myself.
Slowly turn your head left. Slowly turn your head back to the center. Slowly turn your head right. Slowly turn back to the center. Excellent. You'll be able to try on glasses soon.
So I followed the instructions, and it says I have a round face with fuller cheeks. To balance this, we recommend angular frames with rectangular or square shapes. So I click on go to try on now, and let's see what it comes up with. Interesting. So it's given me 3,344 options, enough to keep me occupied for a whole weekend, sure. And normally, because it's only other people who look at me, I'll probably outsource this activity to my family. They can choose whichever option they like to see me in. Unfortunately, they don't have a choice. They'll have to continue to look at me since I'm all locked in with them in the house. But once you choose, you can also complete the transaction by buying the appropriate frame from them directly online. So this is how a whole lot of retail is going to change. You can think of this as just the starting point, and you can buy clothes, you can buy almost anything after trying it on yourself. And if somebody gives you 3,344 options, boy, that's really something. As I had mentioned earlier, we have a suite of collaboration tools and productivity management tools that should enable people to work effectively from home, and for supervisors to feel comfortable about letting their employees work from home with full knowledge that what they're doing from home is monitored, effective, and suitable for achieving the organization's objective. Clearly, in terms of customer service, we are going to see increasing use of bots. The initial use of bots has been kind of childish with not many features, but people have become very sophisticated now, and increasingly the familiarity and the comfort levels that people have about interacting with bots as opposed to actual live people on the other side has really made this industry a very productive and capable one. As we touched upon this, one of India's biggest gifts to the world is the multiple levels of payment rails that we have created over the years. What started off as being casual credit card payments has evolved into online real-time payments involving banks, government institutions, and peer-to-peer. The government has done a lot, and RBI too, in terms of making it affordable for the common man. And as we see increasing acceptance of digital ways of paying each other, the currency can significantly get reduced, currency in circulation, which will lead to a lot of efficiencies, prevent counterfeiting, terrorist funding, and with a lot of audit trails which the government can monitor to prevent evasion of taxes. So all in all, moving towards a digital economy will benefit everybody, with the government saving huge amount of money which they can deploy for welfare mechanisms. It puts a lot of responsibility on companies, and migration to things like cloud computing, where people take care of infrastructure and let you concentrate on the business at hand, is going to be hugely beneficial for companies. Increasingly, India is turning into a data-driven economy, and we're going to see a lot of companies adopting digital practices. We have already seen that hugely in financial services, where things like eKYC are now the norm. Uh, we had a few blips with Aadhaar enabled KYC, but given the safeguards that are being built in, I don't see how in future we're going to go away from Aadhaar based KYC. It'll become robust, it'll become more foolproof, and more convenient for customers and for the organizations that are going to benefit. The government is going to increasingly tighten on privacy and protection of people's sensitive information, especially as we move into a bigger digital driven healthcare economy. Uh, People will guard their privacy, will guard their data a lot more responsibly, and the companies that handle the data are also going to be increasingly under scrutiny and will have to put in safeguards which stand scrutiny. There are going to be huge fines. There are going to be a lot of, I would say, regulatory activism and oversight. So people cannot misuse the data unless they have or rather they can't misuse the data, period, and they can't use the data unless the customers give them the concurrence. The next set of videos that you're about to watch talk about the amazing developments that automation has brought to Amazon, the retail store. Once again, this is something which has happened because of extreme focus in terms of research and development over a very small area of responsibility, which is warehousing, picking, packing, shipping. And how do they achieve all this within ever diminishing turnaround times? So it's not a matter of how Amazon does it, but two things. One is the focus with which they attack a problem, and the extreme degrees to which automation has helped them to do that. Both of which are lessons for you as you step into the corporate world. Relentless focus on the end objective and partnering with technology to be able to do that.
At Amazon's fulfillment centers, like the one on Staten Island, robots transport items to humans who then pick and pack them to be delivered. This robot alliance raises a human's productivity from 100 items packed per hour to around 300 to 400 items an hour. The director of Amazon Robotics Fulfillment says that Amazon is at least 10 years away from robots fully automating the process of a single order. There has also been talk of human hand tracker tech. This is so that when robots bring the tall towers to the humans will know where to quickly put their hands to grab the right item. The faster they can do this, the better. It can't be like when we are standing in front of the fridge wondering what there is to eat. Another solution that has been mentioned to help with this is having individual shelves light up showing where the items are. And then there was talk of there being cameras overhead tracking the human hands with a screen showing where to put their hands in the tower. This would make sense now, since similar technology is being used in Amazon Go stores that track what you pick up, so that you can just walk out when you're done shopping. So as the Amazon robots continue to work around the fulfillment center, Amazon continues to figure out ways of being more efficient by controlling the human workers more closely. And they build tech that makes the humans more efficient like the robots and reduces the number of mistakes they make. In the future, could humans be used to control robots that pick and pack the items? And the person operating them can even be at home while the robots work in the warehouses. These kinds of robots are being tested in Japan, and this will be talked about more in our next video. Let's take a look at what the future holds for the robots working in an Amazon fulfillment center. What ways could more artificial intelligence be installed into an Amazon center? AI is already being used to predict what you are going to buy before you even go to the Amazon website. Since 2015, deep learning AI has been predicting what is going to be bought and getting it to the nearest fulfillment center before it is even ordered. This means that when you shop online, products are readily available, cheaper to ship, and since they are waiting at a center near you, they will ship to your doorstep faster. What other ways could AI make Amazon ship products even faster? Amazon Go stores let you instantly walk out with items. Could more of this tech make its way into Amazon's shipping centers? What about Alexa? How could Amazon's voice assistant be used in their fulfillment centers in the future? There has not been any mention of Amazon using their voice assistant in their fulfillment centers yet, but it is already being used in other shipping centers. Shipping Easy is an online shipping platform that helps e-commerce sites ship their products. Amazon's assistant helps people move from using a keyboard or barcode scanner to using the voice assistant to manage orders, print labels, check postage rates, and handle other shipping tasks hands-free. Other shipping warehouses already use voice-directed technology, which gives verbal instructions based on the warehouse's software through headsets to human workers picking orders. Lastly, on the future tech front, there is the Keeper satellite network. Amazon is investing $10 billion to build a satellite internet network just like SpaceX's Starlink. Amazon's version would require 3,236 orbiting satellites, and they have already received FCC certification. Amazon could use this network to keep their robotic delivery systems connected to a central server. Amazon's robots don't just stay inside of the fulfillment centers. Robots are being built to deliver the packages straight to you. There is the well-known drone delivery program that Amazon has been working on, along with the Scout robots that drive down a sidewalk to deliver your packages. Could the autonomous drones be used in the fulfillment centers one day? Maybe once humans are no longer needed and the drones can fly around freely. Once self-driving cars or vans are on the street, could the Scout robots drive out of the self-driving delivery van to place the package on your doorstep? Or could the Scout robot communicate with your own robot that is inside your house who can open your door and receive the package for you? There is also Amazon's Ring doorbell, which could communicate with the Scout robot to let it into the house to deliver your package. Ring even has a home security drone. In September 2020, Amazon announced their Ring Always Home Cam. It is a security drone that flies to an area in the home in the event of an emergency, such as a break-in, and streams what is happening to your phone. Could these little drone security robots one day work in an Amazon fulfillment center, where if a product falls off of a shelf, the drone goes to inspect what happened, then calls in a robot that can pick it up and return it to the right place? Will there be a day when you click to buy a product on Amazon and the whole delivery chain is run by robots? From artificial intelligence predicting what you want to buy, to self-driving planes that deliver the goods to a robotic fulfillment center, where robots such as self-driving forklifts, supervising drones, driving units, and robotic arms get the items packed. And delivery robots then take the packages and work with your personal robot to get the packages delivered and inside your home.
In the next video, which probably is going to be the last, I know you must be video wary by now, we're going to take a look at what is the prediction for what future of retail is going to look like. There are many areas where technology, augmented reality, virtual reality, artificial intelligence, machine learning, they've all been combined in a beautiful way to cater to changing needs of customers, plus the ability to do business even better. All of them have a fallout naturally, because the more automation you have, the less people dependent you become. While it is good because you will have a whole lot of error-free operations and risk-free, especially in highly risky areas, but it does saddle the government and society with a whole lot of unemployed or unemployable people. So unless you also simultaneously work on skilling them for other jobs which cannot be automated or where the returns are not that exciting, you're going to have a huge inventory of people who have lost their jobs. So that's also a subject for discussion later. But you look at this video and it'll tell you about how changing customer preferences and the changing ways in which businesses can be run can be influenced hugely by technology. The lessons for you are how to use robotics and automation and a variety of combination technologies to be able to do business better than your competitors. Watch.
The future of shopping is going to transform more in the next 20 years than it has in the past 1,000. Thanks to advances in technology like artificial intelligence, machine learning, and data analytics, shopping for clothing is going to be extremely different than it is today. To data, thanks to virtual reality, our shopping experiences in a store will be much different than it is today. When it comes to online shopping today, it's actually quite a flawed experience because sizing is a real problem. You might order 5 of the same dress just to figure out what size you are. But with advances in augmented reality, you'll be able to figure out your size without having to return 5 items to the seller. And so shopping for clothing in the future will be extremely personalized and much less effort for both the customer and the company, who today has to deal with this nightmare of returns in e-commerce. The voice activated assistant will only grow in its ability to understand what the customer wants and needs. For example, you might tell your voice activated assistant, "Hey Alexa, I have a date tonight. I need an outfit to go to the beach." And the activated assistant will tell you exactly what to wear, or maybe even deliver it to your door without having to do much effort. In the future, we'll see even more of a voice activated assistant in the home. And the truth is that humans can process images 60 times faster than text. So we'll see more virtual assistants coupled with imagery on a screen that can help customers choose whether it's retail or figuring out what to shop for dinner that night. The fact that people want things instantly is not going to change, but the methods to getting those items will absolutely change. And we're already starting to see companies like Amazon play with the idea of drone delivery because it's more environmentally friendly and even scalable than cars today. So in the future, we can expect to see even more instant delivery, but scaling that is incredibly hard for companies, but it could be even under 30 minutes. So I think in the future, we'll continue to see more experimentation with getting people items faster, more efficiently, and in a more environmentally friendly manner. Robots are already starting to change how employees and customers interact in a store. And we can only expect to see more robots and robotic process automation in different areas of the business, like supply chain, logistics. We can only expect to see more robots making their way into our customer experiences, but it's not going to be easy. Because even today, employees that have to manage the robots in stores like Walmart are very frustrated with the delinquency of these robots and also the monotony of having to do this day in and day out. Because today we have everything we could ever want from our fingertips, whether that's a Netflix show or ordering food to our couch. And in the future, we'll see even more on-demand products and services. So it will be even harder to get people away from their homes. And so in the future, brick and mortar will be more about experiences. It's about getting people out of the house that compels them to actually go somewhere and do something. We'll see more concept stores like we see from Nordstrom today, where there's actually no transactions happening at the brick and mortar location. It's more about providing a different elevated experience that's about teaching somebody something or giving them something they cannot get from their own home. And it's also about community, because people still need people, and even if we have a technology-powered society in the future, people still crave human interaction, and we have to leave the house to get that. In the future, we won't see less people-to-people interaction. We're going to see more, because studies show that people make other people happy. And while we have all these advances in technology, we'll have robots, AI, and automation, people still crave human interaction. And we're going to see that people miss it when they have too much technology in their daily life. So we will see more human interaction because people will crave it and they will demand it from the experiences that they have.
Thank you very much for your patient listening. I hope this was useful to you, and I look forward to receiving your feedback through Professor Sai Manohar and Dr. Giridhar. And if there are things which need to be clarified a lot more, please do let me know. I'll be happy to oblige. In conclusion, I'll say this. What we have seen so far is just a drop in the ocean. We have seen a particular sector which I've chosen to illustrate the power of technology and its ability to influence new business models. There are multiple other industries where technology has been harnessed so beautifully and so compellingly. It would take several sessions to cover all of them, whether it is manufacturing, logistics, banking and fintech. Huge amount of disruption has happened. One of the areas where we are seeing quite a lot of change is in the government's interaction with the citizens. That's another area which is also very ripe for disruption and huge amount of interaction and better customer satisfaction and governance. The same technologies and the same kind of insights that we get from using it for business purposes can be harnessed across multiple industries. Better manufacturing methodologies, looking at consumption and cutting down wasteful consumption, being able to make your money go further. These are all lessons which I think the pandemic has taught us, and the clutch of businesses that have actually survived and are now prospering. There is a lot of lessons that have to be learned from companies which have just not made the grade. As much as there is to know how to do things, there is also a lot to be said about how not to do things. Hopefully, the session has given you a lot of material to think about and ponder, and as you become employees in organizations, you will continue to discover new ways of doing things, better ways of doing things, better ways of achieving the objectives of the company using technology, and I hope to be around to listen to your tales of success. Thank you for your patient listening. Thank you for the lessons that you will bring to your companies and to your families, and hope all of you have a hugely enriched life going forward. Sai Ram.
Thank you, sir. That was very engaging and enriching session for all of us. It made us think about the integration of rural India and urban India, Bharat and India. Rural India has enormous potential and it has so much to offer. As one of your slides mentioned, that the rural bandwidth consumption has surpassed the urban bandwidth consumption, perhaps is an indicator of future course of action. You mentioned about how cloud computing has released the organizations from the burden of having to look after the infrastructural needs and how they can now focus on more productive activities. You also reminded us about our duty to be aware of data security and privacy issues. Very soon we are going to witness some regulatory activism in this area. It was thrilling to see how technology can provide various solutions for our problems, starting from choosing a frame for a spectacle and more complex jobs of keeping back a fallen object into its position in a large facility like Amazon. It was so exciting to see the journey happening right in front of our eyes. You also brought out some of the dilemmas involved in the new normal. While it is boosting the morale of individual employees by providing flexible working hours, nearby workspaces, etc., at the same time, we don't have answers for pertinent questions like what happens to the real estate which the companies are holding now? What happens when there are no physical offices? How do organizations retain culture and bonding among employees? You also spoke about the possible job losses and why it is important to think in the direction of accommodating that workforce as well into the mainstream, either via upskilling them or alternative employments. Thank you very much, sir, for taking out time for all of us from your very busy schedule. I pray to Swami to bless us soon with an opportunity to host you at our campus and be beneficiaries of your immense expertise in the field. Thank you once again, sir. Sai Ram.
Om Shri Sai Ram. I have the pleasure today of introducing the speaker for this session, Shri K. Bhaskar. Shri K. Bhaskar is a senior financial services executive with an enviable track record of operations spanning the global scale, across regions and across various roles and responsibilities. Let me begin by introducing him in his own words. He says, he is an experienced banker with a demonstrated history of working across cultures, countries, and functions in the banking industry. He has a unique experience across frontline, middle, and back office roles in retail and wealth business management and diverse operations and technology management. He says that he is an agile learner with a keen interest to explore the boundaries. Currently, Shri K. Bhaskar is working with the Westpac Group as Head of Digital Operations since October 2020. Shri K. Bhaskar had his education at Sri Sathya Sai Institute of Higher Learning, wherein he completed his Masters in Business Administration in the year 1993. Prior to that, he had completed his Bachelor of Science in Chemistry from the same university. He also holds an executive education degree in digital business transformation from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Talking about his wide-ranging experience, he began at the City Corp in the year 1993. He worked from May 1993 onwards for a period of 13 years and 7 months at City Corp, beginning as operations manager for Citibank in India. From March 2002, for almost 4 years, he was the Chief Operations Officer for the Middle East, which included countries like UAE, Bahrain, and Oman. In August 2005, he was appointed as the Chief Operations Officer for the CIS cluster, which includes countries like Russia, Ukraine, and Kazakhstan. From February 2009 to August 2010, he was member of the Board of Directors and Retail Bank Head at Citibank, Russia. From August 2010, he was appointed as the Managing Director, Country Business Manager for Retail Banking at the Prague, Czech Republic. He was the Managing Director for Europe, Middle East, and African Operations in London for 4 months from April 2012. After his illustrious career in Citibank, he moved over to the ANZ Group in various capacities, wherein he worked for 8 years and 4 months spanning from July 2012 to October 2020. He worked in various capacities as General Manager, Regional Chief Operations Officer, wherein he oversaw operations across 10 countries in Asia Pacific. He was the CEO for the digital initiative of the bank and also alternate director of the National Payments Platform Australia Limited. I have the pleasure to invite him to speak to us on the topic, the increasing role of purpose in corporations, my experiences in the banking industry. Welcome to Shri K. Bhaskar. Sai Ram.
Om Sri Sai Ram, my most humble pranams at the lotus feet of our beloved Lord. For those of you who don't know me, I had the unique privilege to be a student like all of you and passed out back in 1993, having completed my MBA. I had begun my education at Perthi in class 8 in 1983, went on to do my undergrad in Whitefield, and returned back to Perthi to finish my MBA. I was fortunate to have gone through the same hallowed portals as you currently are blessed to be part of. I genuinely consider this opportunity to address you or to share my corporate experiences as a privilege, as I have been in your shoes listening to speakers from industry during my time in MBA. I always found stories from the corporate life most captivating in those sessions. That was the case when we heard stories from our professors from their corporate life. I hope to share a few from my experience, and I hope they are of some interest to you. By Swami's abundant grace, I had the good fortune to have an interesting career in banking, working across various continents, doing interesting roles that led me to have stints starting in India, Middle East, Russia, Czech Republic, UK, Singapore, and most recently in 2017, I moved to Australia. I have only worked with 2 companies through my career, joining my third one just a month back. Given the broader theme of this program, Economic Resurgence with Human Values, I was thinking what would be the most appropriate topic that I could talk about. And I thought probably it struck me that purpose and values in companies as a concept were a great way to relate to human values. Hence, I decided to speak today about increasing role of purpose in corporations, my experiences in the banking industry. At its core, a company's purpose is a bold affirmation of its reason for being in business, very foundational. It conveys what the organization stands for in historical, ethical, emotional, and practical terms. Purpose is very motivational because it connects with the heart as well as the head. This takes outer focus to a whole new level, not just emphasizing the importance of serving customers or understanding their needs, but also putting managers and employees in customer shoes. The duty of a business doesn't stop at generating profits for shareholders. Businesses don't operate in a vacuum. They are an integral part of the society. Unlike any other member of the society, they are responsible for supporting and contributing towards it. Evidence shows that in the long term, the consistently best performing businesses go beyond profit maximization. They serve a purpose greater than their own self-interest. They act with conscious awareness of the interests of the society, the communities they live in, the people who work for them, and the planet as a whole. So purpose is not a new word or a new fashion. Purpose, vision, mission, and values have been around for ages. My encounters with purpose began back in 2015 when the company that I was working in decided to understand the role of purpose, what it does, how it should look, and how do we draft it. A team of senior leaders, including me, we spent a couple of weeks visiting a range of companies, small and large, across industries. Happened to be in China, ranging from farms, stock markets, export companies, manufacturing companies, etc., which had tremendous success. The common theme was they were very, very successful. Our objective to visit these companies was to go and talk to people across various levels of hierarchy within the company, right from the shop floor workers to the managers to the CFOs and the CEOs. After our visit, when we returned and regrouped to share notes, the most dominant theme and common theme was alignment of what the company stood for. That was common at all levels, clearly articulated by their purpose. So they were doing something right there, that there was beyond just day-to-day job, a common theme, a sense of purpose, which really ensured that communication at all levels was pretty aligned. That made us sure that we needed to articulate our company's purpose much more crisply and clearly. There was no better way for a company like ours, which was more than 180 years old, than to look back into our own archives and our corporate history and learn as to what made us survive and grow through these years. What was that glue? It boiled down to the reason we came into existence back in early 19th century: to facilitate trade, help provide access to goods and services to local communities, help them build their businesses and thrive. To cut the long story short, we finalized the purpose of the company after multiple iterations on the verbiage to be our purpose is to shape a world where people and communities thrive. That was the line that we had used. The more recent company that I've joined has a similar theme, saying helping Australians thrive. The word Australians is replaced by the country wherever the company is present. If it happened to be in Singapore, helping Singaporeans thrive. If it happened to be in India, it will be helping Indians thrive. The whole purpose is to say, all of them are saying that how do we contribute or make our share of contribution to the society in which we operate, in which our customers exist, in which we make our profits. What might be more interesting and relevant is how does purpose work in real life? How is it brought to life? Apart from being a beautifully framed statement on the walls of the company. This is done in a few different ways across each of the divisions in the company. I thought I will share a little more about that because that might be actually experience which I probably was very skeptical too until I went through that. Having framed this purpose broadly, saying our purpose is to shape a world where people and communities thrive, our institutional division, which banks the large corporates with deep relationships and history, decided to look at their own portfolio with a lens of the purpose, not something that they do it every day. Normally you would look from a point of view of what is the opportunity, what are the potential profits or sales or revenues that we can get. But this was a different lens. Shaping a world where people and communities thrive. Now, looked at the type of companies whose line of business may not be entirely aligned with our purpose. To name a few. Tobacco. It has impact on the family well-being, people, the customers' well-being. Arms, which have genuine impact of conflicts in communities. Coal, high carbon emission, non-green energy. And they effectively decided to not onboard any more of such companies, and most recently made a public announcement that it plans to exit companies with maximum emissions if they don't have a concrete plan to transition to low carbon emission strategy. Now, this is a very strong position for a corporate to take, especially when most of these relationships were very profitable from a shareholder perspective. But it was about aligning itself to its purpose. Interestingly, the new ESG, environment, social, and governance framework is increasingly becoming popular in both companies and for investors. There is proven trend that companies with strong ESG credentials perform better over time, and hence investors are looking for those themes. ESG and sustainability are very closely linked to the communities and hence the purpose. Let me share another example where I was personally involved. In that role, I was responsible as a GM for deposits and payments products. Being the top 4 banks in the country with a significant market share, we were always looking to ways to improve our efficiency, simplify our business so that we can retain and if not grow our market share. We were looking to find products and services that are not aligned to our future and exit the same so that we can manage our expenses better, focus on the right products, etc. As we went through that list, we came across a pretty outdated product but with a large base of reasonably wealthy customers, those holding passbooks. When I first saw that, I said, oh, we still have passbooks. and something that our parents and many of us in our early days of our careers held with banks. The company had stopped issuing new passbooks, but serviced those customers with passbooks. Now, the reason this product was a focus was because these customers don't have any other means to bank apart from visiting a branch, which is, in the current digital economy, the branches are quickly disappearing and a very expensive way to service. So it was a no-brainer for us to exit that product and migrate those customers to an account with a debit card, so that they can access the bank 24/7 and didn't have to depend on the branch timings. And we made special plans to provide passbook-like statements so that they are comfortable with the experience. The analysis showed that the customer base with the product was almost 60% of the base was over 80 years, and almost 80% of the base was over 60, predominantly elderly customers. So given that it was touching these elderly customers who would qualify to be vulnerable in many respects, we were asked to go to the board ESG committee, which is Environment, Social and Governance Committee, as it involved the vulnerable clients. They asked us if we had done any market research before we decided. We had intended but not yet done that, thinking what is it that we're going to find? So we embarked on market research. The outcome was very, very surprising. These customers with passbooks, predominantly elderly as I mentioned, visited branches regularly, some of them even daily and sometimes weekly, even if they had no reason but purely to socialize. Now that theme is not unique to Australia, it is unique in many parts of the world. They visited branches regularly. They would have a chat with the banker. They didn't trust the debit cards because of all the stuff that they heard about the fraud and usage of cards. And to them, a passbook was a means of financial independence, trust, control. Taking away that product was really traumatic for them. I actually watched the videos and listened to the conversations together with quite a few senior colleagues of mine, because it was an interesting output from market research. And the researcher actually told us, I have been doing research for your company for nearly 10 years, but this is one topic where I think, based on our research, we strongly recommend you not to proceed with the path that you are originally planning. So I was pretty clear looking at that this was certainly not something that was aligned to our purpose. In the sense, if our customers were made traumatic by the decision that we are doing, though it made a lot of sense for us from a profitability, from a cost efficiencies perspective, but this certainly didn't sit well with our purpose. So we went back to the board to let them know of our decision. We wanted to wait for the customer adoption over time. Interestingly, of course, COVID accelerated the journey. These very same customers couldn't visit branches anymore as branches were closed, and they had to embrace remote banking. However, the timing when we decided against it was entirely because it was not aligned to our purpose. So this goes to show how purpose can actually determine business decisions and outcomes. Another interesting example, which all of us can relate to, gambling. We all know that gambling can be very addictive, and excessive gambling leads to numerous social evils. Domestic violence, ruin of families, exactly opposite of what communities thrive, which is the spirit of the purpose statement that the company chose. So in this case, we found that our customers used our credit card as a product significantly for gambling. And when we looked at again from the lens of purpose, we thought probably that's not the best use of the product that we are providing. But who are we to decide where customers spend their money? at the same time, when we know they're going the harm's way, probably we need to do something about it. So in this case, as a company, we took a market leading step to control excessive gambling by putting a limit on the credit cards for the category of gambling spend. Now the customer may decide to switch to another company and do the same transactions. But we wanted to be clear that we didn't want to facilitate that type of business, even if it was profitable but harmful to the community. So this is yet again another conscious decision, and which is well appreciated by many quarters of the community, from the media and others, because it is a stance which was sensible. Of course, there are many others who are critical, saying that you are no longer commercially focused. Okay. So while the individual institutions make their own decisions, like how we did, on how they want to act in terms of their stakeholders, customers, employees, shareholders, and community at large, over last many decades, it's no surprise that one of the stakeholders, namely shareholders, were the dominant stakeholders whose interests prevailed. That led to banks and financial services to become some of the most profitable across the globe in terms of their returns. It also made them not so popular. In one of the trust index surveys, it cast bankers and banks at almost at the bottom of the list in terms of trust, very close to the politicians. Now this is where Australia and places like UK took some decisive actions, maybe politically driven, but from a community perspective, these new initiatives were aimed at overall good for the common man. Let me share some of those stories too. In few years back in Australia, a regulator had introduced responsible lending guidelines. Now these guidelines were enforced on all lenders. What do they mean? What they did was it puts the onus on the banks to verify the borrowing capacity of the customers. Now that sounds very, very basic, as banks normally do that for a living. However, given the focus on sales and profitability, typically banks would like to lend the highest possible amounts once they establish the genuineness of the clients. Very often that can put customers in a harm's way when they are over-leveraged. So when over-leveraged, customers end up making suboptimal decisions and end up potentially losing their valuable resources or assets. Now, how does this situation arise? Normally, banks rely on what customers declare as their income and expense to arrive at the loan serviceability, and hence the decision on whether to grant a loan, and if yes, the size of the loans. So normally, that leads to a partial disclosure of expenses to get the loan granted, and resulting in being over-leveraged. Now, everybody wants to play the game. They will say, okay, my expenses are not really so much, but this is what it is. This is my savings. I'm happy to get a loan and I can service it. Okay. So to that extent, the regulation has moved the onus from the customer to the lender to ensure that the lender has to exhaust all means to verify the actual expenses and not merely depend on the customer declaration. And the consequences of non-compliance are very, very significant fines, class action lawsuits, public rebuke, individual responsibility for the responsible individuals, leaders. Having been on the bank side, it is a very burdensome obligation to execute, as we needed to do significantly more manual work to review customer statements. If customers said, I spent only so much, we were expected to actually interrogate by looking at customer statements and what is this amount? What is this for? We are seeing it month on month on month. You have not disclosed this. So what could have been a pretty automated process had to become a lot more manual, because we had to start litigating, understanding exactly what the statements look like, challenge the expenses declared, and significantly delay our processing and make it much more expensive than what it was before. However, we also admit that the spirit of such legislation in the best interest of the customers. So again, here the regulator is taking the lead in trying to set standards. Now, these are standards which are right for the community, right for the customers at large. another regulation on vulnerable customers. Now, the regulator has coming up with regulations to say, how do you treat vulnerable customers? Who is vulnerable? How do you define vulnerable? Is it by age? Is it based on conditions that they are in? Is it because of a period of time when they are probably undergoing certain situations? So, but they have again forced banks to review their practices and how they deal with such customers. What can you lend? How much can you lend? Which products can you offer to such clients? It also puts the onus on banks to establish if the customer is really vulnerable by seeing if they're receiving, say, for example, government benefits, unemployment benefits, things like that, which normally were not normal course, would not be something that we would be really looking at. But yet again, that's where regulator is coming in to help. And another whole experience back in 2018 was something called a Banking Royal Commission. Now, this was a phenomenal experience in all respects, something which I had not gone through in my professional career. What happened was the government appointed a retired judge with immense powers to interrogate the entire financial service industry, banks, insurance companies, investment companies on their practices, their track record on disclosure, customers' ability to understand the fees, sale of type of products, what are the type of errors that we may have committed, either conscious, irrespective of the size or intent. Banks have had to set up really, really large teams of employees, thousands, to review all the cases where banks may have overcharged or wrongly charged, and calculate the same for the last 10 years and return the same with interest. The banks were expected to declare to the commission all the historical 10 years errors or mistakes or any things that we consider were mistakes on our side had to be declared. At the same time, the commission opened up to the entire customers in the country to report of any misdoing, wrongdoing by the banks. Imagine asking everybody to declare what was wrongly done to you. There was a flood of customers who came back, and we spent a whole year going through rounds and rounds of investigations where we had to actually either admit or defend, in most cases looking at the spirit than letter of the law. It's about being fair, ensuring that we are really concerned for the end customer. Is the customer in a vulnerable position? Is he educated enough? Or did we make enough attempts to educate the customer on our products? Did we sell the right products? So all of that. To me, it was quite enlightening to see how this could play out. While again, it is not in the best interest of the financial sector because they were going through a lot of past, a lot of water under the bridge. But if you looked at it for the community perspective, that was a phenomenal exercise. It helped all the companies, all the institutions involved in this to refocus, to come back to the knitting, to say, why do we exist? What is our role in society? And more recently, similar, yet another forward-looking legislation, I would say, is on design and distribution obligation regulation. It is called DDO, Design and Distribution Obligation. Now, this latest regulation aims to put a lot more responsibility on banks to ensure their products have very clear and defined target market criteria that keeps customers' welfare in mind, and also obligation of how the products are sold or distributed. It holds everyone in the value chain, the product manufacturer, the distributor, etc., to account for any non-compliance. So why am I sharing all these examples and stories? I've not even covered anything about, say, corporate social responsibility, CSR, etc., that most organizations take part in. For various reasons, they try and do that. The stories I have narrated till now, be it a regulatory evolution or companies embracing purpose and the community lens to their business models, these are all setting up new standards and means for economic progress on resurgence. Companies that don't keep pace with these are certain to lag or cease to exist over time. The foundational aspects of these stories are back to the human values that we hold so dearly, articulated in a very different terminology and language, but the spirit behind is the same, the values that echo with all of us. So personally for me, these winds of change are so welcome, especially growing up in Perthi like all of you, having spent my growing years there that shaped me as a person and my thinking for life. They helped me align my personal values with those of the employer with whom I work. With that, I think I should bring this to a close. It's again a unique opportunity for me to try and talk to all of you, though remote, not a face-to-face. Face-to-face would have been wonderful. However, this is the new way of working across the globe. Interestingly, I commenced my new assignment in a new company entirely remotely through the interview process, and the last couple of months when I started, I've not even met any of them. So this is the new way of world. So to that extent, while I wish I was there face to face and had taken questions probably or had more further discussions, I still thank for the opportunity that I've been given. I would like to thank our dearest Lord, the university, and the faculty for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts and experiences. Finally, pranams again at the lotus feet of our dearest Lord. Thank you very much. Sai Ram.
Om Shri Sai Ram. It's my pleasure again to present the vote of thanks for the talk given by Shri K. Bhaskar. The topic was Increasing Role of Purpose in Corporations. Shri Bhaskar began his talk by defining the word purpose. Purpose is a bold affirmation of the reason for being in business. Purpose connects with both the heart and the head. It's not just about adding shareholder value or profit maximization for businesses. Businesses do not operate in a vacuum. They are an integral part of society. He mentioned that consistently well-performing businesses in the long run add awareness of the interest of society to their purpose. He mentioned how he was part of a team which was put together to identify and define the purpose of their organization. After weeks of sitting together and deep thinking, they arrived at this one-liner as the purpose of their organization. It read, "Our purpose is to shape a world where people and communities thrive." From here on, the organization started looking at all their activities through the lens of this purpose. They were banking large corporates. It was a very profitable segment, and yet they decided to look at all these transactions and activities from the viewpoint of this purpose that they had identified. And they decided not to onboard such organizations which do not align with their purpose. Giving further examples from his personal experience in the banking industry, he talked about one proposal which was meant to completely digitize the way of transacting for elderly customers who presently owned passbooks. The only way for these customers to perform a banking transaction was to physically visit a bank branch. The organization conducted a market research, and the market research revealed surprising results. The elderly customers were very regular to the bank. They were regular customers visiting the bank almost on a daily basis. Even though they did not visit the bank for performing banking transactions, they would visit the bank for speaking to the people there, for speaking to the manager, and for socializing. The passbook for them was a symbol of financial independence, which could not be snatched away from them. Given this, the organization decided, since the elderly customers felt that the passbook was a symbol of their financial independence, and the purpose of their organization itself was to ensure or shape a world where people and communities thrive, they decided not to go ahead with this proposal. Shri Bhaskar spoke about some other examples wherein the bank took upon itself the onus of setting limits and ensuring that the customers were not overly engaged in activities like gambling and wagering. He spoke about responsible lending guidelines in Australia, wherein the onus was on lenders rather than on customers to ensure that there was no indiscreet lending. It prevented customers from being over-leveraged, from taking loans much more than what they could possibly repay. He also spoke about how the onus of identification of vulnerable customers was resting on the banks. Thus, from the talk given by Shri K. Bhaskar, we understand that organizations must have a larger, overarching, positive purpose and not merely limited to increasing monetary gains. I thank Shri Bhaskar for taking out time out of his hectic schedule and speaking to us and providing us with his insightful thoughts. The talk indeed was very purposeful. It prodded us all to think of the very purpose of our existence as individuals and, on the same hand, look at the purpose for the existence of organizations. Why do organizations exist? Thank you, sir, once again for providing your time and expert knowledge on the topic of purpose. With these few words, I once again thank you and conclude. Sai Ram.